Here we go. The meeting is set. The meeting is set and they are meeting. They're going to find themselves in Alaska and they're going to be talking about this meeting. Okay. So, what's so important about this meeting? Well, I will tell you one thing. I will tell you that I believe that what's really going on, okay, is that Trump has decided to meet at this point in time because Zelensky has been weakened. And that's the reason why Trump wants to meet at this point, right? He's not meeting with this guy, Putin, because, we were supposed to meet anyway. No, 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 no. You need to understand there's several items at play right now. Several items. The first one is you need to understand why Trump is meeting to begin with. Why are we having this meeting? Okay, and that is extremely important. That's a disaster. Right? There are two reasons why Trump is meeting, and it is not about Trump wants to split the country. He wants to make a deal with Zelensky, and he's not there. He's going to invite him. He's going to be bringing in, talking about the European to discuss, and they're going to have another meeting. This is not about that. Okay, you need, and as my subscribers, I want you to be as informed as possible. I'm not here to give you the news because who cares about the news? We know they're meeting. The question for you is, why are they meeting? Why is it such a big deal that they're meeting? Why is Trump truly going out there, putting himself again, and trying to get something going, which, quite frankly, we realize that there's not going to be anything for. They can't possibly agree on actually giving up the land. And I mean, imagine that they need to go back, right? And you see all this, right? You see the pieces that they are potentially coming out and doing away with. They're going to have to get. There's no way they're going to give this back. There is no way that is going to happen. Okay, they don't want to do that. That is not going to happen. So what is Trump out there? What is he doing? What is the point? Here's the point. Trump is going to meet Putin for one simple reason. He wants to meet Putin. He wants to talk to him, but not about Ukraine. In fact, there was a recent article. There was a very recent article that talks about that. Right? There was a very recent article that talks about the fact that you want to be able to do it. Okay, and in fact, it's in the I'll quote the Financial Times. Okay, and essentially it says that Trump and Putin will discuss how do you know not world leader. Don't invite people on your head and say, imagine. No, 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 no. Today, the news is Trump and Putin will discuss economic cooperation. Didn't I tell you that a couple of days ago? Right? At Alaska Summit. And we'll talk about Ukraine. Financial Times is mentioning it. It's not me. Right? It's not me saying it. It's a Financial Times. They come out and say it now. How do you know you're not a world leader? Here's the thing, okay? You're not going to be told exactly what's going on because you may not like what you hear, okay? And usually what's happening with newspapers and news and everything that you hear, they are targeting an audience, you. They want you to hear what you want to hear, right? What do you think about? I will tell you about the dollarization and the BRIC currency uprising because this has everything to do with BRICS. Okay, what's happening basically is that Trump wants the most important thing for the US right now is not to start to become irrelevant because, as Sahil Ganwat mentioned, he's talking about BRICS and de-dollarization. That's what it's about, my friends. This is not about meeting and making deals with people, helping, stopping the war. They have interest. These countries have interest, and MAGA is back in business, believe it or not. And MAGA is, and that's MAGA is basically saying, you know what? Stop the fighting. Enough of this. So why is Trump doing this? I will tell you. Number one, he wants to make sure that he keeps Putin away from China. That is a very important fact. Why? Because the US is slowly losing ground. The US is slowly losing ground, and I will explain. Now, losing ground in terms of its having to do with industrialization, right? Losing ground. 90% of the medicine coming to the US comes from India or China. The US is now highly dependent on China for rare mineral. Okay? So it's impossible to do it. It is becoming more and more difficult. And the second thing is why he's doing it. So, okay, fine. So he wants to, because you're not going to be able to get this war resolved. You know, right? You know why you can't get this war resolved? Because all of the requirements that have been put by Zelensky and Ukraine, they want Putin to go back to where he comes from. Okay. There's nothing is going to happen. He wants him to get out, to go back, to give everything back, to pay reparation, to say, I'm sorry. That's not going to happen. If you understand Putin, you will understand that this is not happening. Okay? At the end of the day, what you're looking at is the U.S. going there to make sure that that Putin stays with the U.S., or at least have some kind of, like we said, is having to economic cooperation. You say, what do you mean economic cooperation? I thought you were going over there to negotiate. No, we are not going there. Okay, that is not happening. So that's what's happening here. The second thing is, but why now? Well, the reason why now, let me explain to you what has happened very recently. Okay. What has happened is this. Wow, so many comments, I can't keep up. Oh, take it easy, guys. What's happening is this. What's happening is, I don't know if you know Olinsky Chamanov is, but basically, he has weakened President Zelensky. So what happened is essentially, he's a Ukrainian politician who serves as deputy prime minister and minister for national unity. Okay, and basically on June 23rd of this year, Ukraine National Anti-Corruption Bureau charged him for bribery, and he's a good friend of Zelensky. And guess what happened? He left the country. And guess what happened? Basically, there was a bail of 120 million. He remained free on bail without travel restriction or suspension from duties. Appeals to suspend his pretrial measure have been filed. They postponed the hearing after traveling abroad for quote-unquote official business. He returned to Ukraine around June 22nd. But this case is seen as a trigger for President Zelensky's controversial push to erode the independence of Ukraine anti-corruption. And that's what he did, prompting widespread. So what happened is essentially Zelensky wanted to abolish the independence of the anti-corruption institution because his friend was being indicted. And the people rose up in the street. So Zelensky right now is very weakened because of corruption. In fact, let me ask you that very question. Let me see what you guys do you think. Do you think that Zelensky? Let's do a quick let's do a survey here. Let's do a quick survey to what you think whether or not he's corrupt or not. One hell of a story, mate, but Trump still has to release the Epstein file. We're back on that one. Let's talk about Epstein after. But basically, well, what's happening, the latest news is that they don't want to, the government doesn't want to release the file. The files. Trump will put Zelensky in his place. He'll tell everything in testing. Imagine bending the rules to benefit your corrupt friends. Trump would revert, release the files. Well, when we say files, you're not going to get the grand jury files because a judge 2 days ago said no. They're on Bondi's desk. They say no, and they say, listen, we look at the files, and there was nothing in those files. That's what he said. I've looked at those files, and there's nothing in those files, so therefore you're not going to get to see them. The thing is, everybody wants to see the file, but they know they can't see them. Everybody wants to talk to everyone in Congress, knowing that nothing is going to be said because no one is going to talk. The only person that's going to be able to talk is Ghislaine Maxwell. Okay? So the situation that we have right now, with Putin meeting Trump is basically that they have nothing to give to the U.S. except staring away from Russia. That is what is needed right now. That is exactly what is needed. So what does let's talk about what everybody wants, because that's important. Okay, so first of all, I will say this: Zelensky has been weakened by the scandal that happened in Ukraine. Therefore, this is why Trump is picking that moment to do it. 2, he met with the European Bahukia. And 3, I don't believe that Trump is there to meet and discuss the Ukraine war, because let me tell you exactly what Ukraine wants, right? What does Ukraine want? Well, this is very simple. Ukraine wants full territorial restoration. They want legally binding security guarantees, justice, accountability. Okay. Sustained economic military support. No negotiation without Ukraine at the table. That is going to be very difficult to achieve. No, I mean, they're going to Alaska, believe it or not. The reason they're going to Alaska is because there is some territorial situation which enables them to, because don't forget, technically, Putin is could be arrested. If he goes to Europe, they could arrest him because he's been guilty of international, however you want to look at it. But basically, what has happened, let me tell you what's going on here, is going, because of ICC standards. So they are, Alaska is not going anywhere, and Putin is not going anywhere. Let's see. What kind of survey do we have results here? Well, I don't know. Corrupt? No. Most of you think the guy's not. Although it's not 80-10. It's like 53% of you think that he's not corrupt, but 47% thinks that he is. That's a lot of numbers. Yes, purchase. That's a lot of numbers. Anyway, so basically what this guy wants, what Zelensky wants, is going to be very difficult to achieve. In essence, Ukraine wants complete victory, permanent security, and justice. Okay? This is why there's a gap between what Kiev wants and what Washington capital wants. Would be willing to sell on the U.S.-Russia deal. But these people are not stupid. They know that. right? They know that he's never going to get what he wants. He knows that Russia's not going to pull out, right? And the Europeans, they also know that Russia is not going to pull all the way back and say, I'm sorry. Because you know what Russia actually wants? Russia wants territorial legitimacy, okay? Recognition. They want security guarantees. So they want basically recognition that they keep the Crimea, parts of Donetsk, all of these Kherson. There could be a formal recognition or a freeze, maybe a freeze where we are. Let me give you a little map so you know what's happening in the world, right? They want to freeze. You see this stuff on my right over there? They want to keep all this. They want to keep. Now, do you think that the Ukrainians are going to say, yeah, okay, fine? No, that's not going to happen. They will never allow that to happen. So then what do we do? Right? So we can't agree on anything? So what's the point of talking? That's the point. Right? When Trump says, I'm going to go over there, I'm going to talk to these people. He said, but it's a waste of time. You got the Europeans says, whatever you do, don't give up the store. He says, I know that. I know I'm not going to give up the store. I just want to talk to Putin to see what you have in mind. As mentioned, I want to discuss economic cooperation. No, don't do business. He's a tyrant. I don't care. If I don't deal with him, he's going to go to China. I'm losing India right now, more or less. I was losing her anyway, it would appear, unless he's able to pull it back. Because when you charge India 50% tariff, you're saying you're close to business. And you know that India needs the U.S. quite a bit. So I read that you said and thought about it, it become a state. I appreciate it. Just a lot to happen and they lose. Yes. So that's the first thing that's happening, right? So basically what we're saying is that there is no point of having a discussion just around Ukraine because they will never allow it. And Putin, what does he want? Number two, he wants security guarantees, a legally binding commitment that Ukraine will not join NATO. Two, reduction of NATO troops' presence or missile system near Russia's border. Reaffirmation of some sort of buffer zone between Russia and NATO territory. That's what he's looking for. And political prestige. He wants to go home and say, look what I did. Look what I did, right? I was able, I won, and I'm coming home and I'm bringing 3 more territories with me. So at the end of the day, there's going to be quite a bit of changes. Okay. But most importantly, do you know what Russia wants, right? What does Russia want at the end of the day? Because this channel is about finding out what's going on with the black swan. We're trying to figure out, there's only white swans, right? But now we could find the thing that nobody's looking at. That's what we're looking at. I am telling you right now, what nobody's looking at is the fact that basically Trump is going there to negotiate. Now, obviously, as you get closer, the news is going to come out, what you're really there for. Because other people like me are asking the question. They say, but you know very well that's never going to happen. You're wasting your time. Why are you wasting your time over there? Well, he's not wasting his time. What's going to happen is he's going to go there and he's going to basically talk to Putin mano a mano to see what is it that you actually want. But what does Putin want? What does he want? Well, beyond Ukraine and Russia, Russia also wants to use any deal to drive wedges between the U.S. and Europe. You see what's happening here? They each want something else. They want to keep the other one away from someone else. And the game that is being played, unfortunately, you will not, 50-50. Everybody is 50. Let's see what happens. The thing is, what is going to happen next? That is what we're wondering. And what's going to happen next, they're going to meet, they're going to talk, but they're not going to talk about what you want them to talk about. They're going to talk about something else. That's what you hear, the economic cooperation. Now, at the end of the day, because Zelensky, because he tried to essentially remove the this group that they have in Ukraine, right? Basically what he did, he wanted to remove the what we call the the Ukraine Anti-Corruption Institution, like NABU and SAPO, which is a big deal in U.S. And Trump always said that that Zelensky was a bit corrupted on the side, on the edges, right? And yes, obviously, when Zelensky wants to remove the anti-corruption institution, that's a problem. That's a big problem, and it prompted wide political firestorm. The people went in the streets, and they say, "What the heck? What do you mean?" Right? They went out there in the streets, and they said, "What do you mean you want to remove the corruption bureau?" No, we want to keep it in. And what are you doing? I thought you were with us. Are you another corrupted politician again? So what are we trusting you, dealing with anything? So that's a real problem, my friend. That's a real problem. And it's a real problem. And don't forget to subscribe to this channel, by the way, while I have your attention at this point. Don't forget to subscribe to this channel, because what we do is we look for what's important and what are the potential consequences of all these actions and what's really going on. What's really going on at the end of the day, the U.S. is slowly losing control. It's becoming less relevant, and it's trying to fight. And that's why you have the administration going in, fighting, no more taxpayer funding for Ukraine. Exactly. That's what the MAGA people and the administration is trying to pay more and more attention to MAGA, because they're the one that put they put them in the office. What do you think we're talking about Epstein, all right? Because MAGA does not want to hear about the fact that we don't know what's going on with Epstein. They also do not want to go to war with Russia. We don't want anything to do. Stop the war. The more Trump goes out and stop talking about it, the better off they're going to be. What else? Let me tell you what else. Basically, what you have all these people going out, and Zelensky being weakened. So maybe at some point they go there and they say, well, you know what? Whatever you got, you keep. Of course, Ukraine is going to say no. Well, then the logical thing for Trump to do in the U.S. administration, it says, I am not. Ukraine attempts at curbing corruption have increased in the last 15 years. Yeah, but TX, be careful, because very recently, the thing I just told you is that basically Zelensky controversial push to erode the independence of Ukraine anti-corruption institution, prompting widespread criticism. He tried to put them away. He tried to do away with a NABU who was going after his friend, who happened to be overseas, but then he came back. He wasn't escaping. That's wrong. He's being trialed or whatever. There's corruption in Ukraine. Huge amount of corruption, unfortunately. And this is why MAGA is saying, what are we doing? What are we protecting, Ukraine? Right? What's the point? I mean, I know that they've been attacked. I know that Russia's invading them, but the U.S. has bigger problems, according to the U.S. administration. The U.S. is becoming irrelevant very slowly, but very surely. What do I mean when I say that? Well, I will tell you that if you take a look very carefully, what's going on with the U.S., the clock is ticking. Okay. The U.S. share of global manufacturing output has declined from 30% in 2000 to 16% today. Critical industry like semiconductors, batteries, steel, machine tools, and EV components. pharmaceutical sector. The U.S. lead R&D and biotech, but it relies heavily on foreign production. 90 to 95% of active pharmaceutical ingredients are produced in India and China. What do you think it means, right? That means that basically the U.S. is not making its own medicine, is not producing what it's supposed to be producing to protect itself. The new tactic to combat corruption is clandestine. I think that what it is you're having an issue in dealing with the situation, and that's a problem. Because the U.S., imagine you're going to this meeting with, in your back of your mind, you say, okay, I got to make us relevant again. So I got to make sure when I'm talking to Putin that we have an agreement. I mean, I don't think cameras are going to be there all along. USA is about to boom based on the recent billion-dollar investment deals, including Taiwan Semiconductor Company. Well, Druffy says USA is about to boom based on the recent dollar investment made Taiwan. Well, hold on. This is a lot of stuff, guys. I mean, Taiwan basically wanted to invest $100 billion, and the U.S. administration says that's not enough, my friend. I need more. I need a $400 billion. So, cash 75. So, does broker a deal? Do you think people will think it's legitimate? Of course not. Well, at the end of the day, you have to be very careful, right? There's a lot of misinformation, lots of misinformation everywhere. They're pulling you one way, they're pulling you the other way. The fact is, the reason Trump is meeting with Putin has nothing to do with Ukraine, because there's nothing there's nothing going to be able to do anything with Ukraine, and you cannot threaten Putin with more sanctions. The same way you can even threaten India with the 50% tariff. You can't even do that, right? So it's becoming very difficult to actually do it, right? Wow, let's take a look at the poll. We have about, do you think 48%? So, no, I mean, you don't really think he's that correct. A little bit, but not that much, with 200 votes. Okay. Let me ask you another important question that we want to talk about. Let's take a look at the Russia. All right. So, should the U.S. provide weapon to Ukraine? Let's see what you guys think about that. And we had almost 400 votes. So, do you think the U.S. provide weapons to Ukraine? Voting starts right now. Okay. Who has the most minerals? Well, no, China. It's not that China has the most minerals. It's just that China basically has developed the ability to dig for those minerals in a big kind of way. That is the reason. That is how they're able to do it. If I give up on politics, no, you must never give up on politics. Graphite is the main component in batteries now. That is correct, Uncle Tony. Mark is making a good point. Mark is making a very good point. And the way everyone feels about that's the issue. Let's see if the U.S. should provide weapons to Ukraine. Now, next, what is going on? Well, what's really going on is what is the European? What do they want? Right? because they had arranged a virtual meeting with President Trump, and basically during that meeting they made a big deal out of it. They were talking back and forth, and what they said is Trump promised that he's going to talk about the land, the give up of the land, and he's going to get something good for us. Basically, that's what he's saying. But they also know that Trump is not there for that. So what are they catering to really? What are all these people there? That's a question. And don't forget that the U.S. administration is pressuring heavily being pressured by MAGA, which basically say, I don't want to fight anymore. I want to know everything about Epstein. Can we focus on the U.S., please? Yes, more tariff if you want, but none of these wars. We do not want to go involved in any more wars, and that's what's happening. Now, in terms of end goals for the meeting tomorrow, I think it's a big waste of time, because if you think about Ukraine, they want full restoration of the 2014 borders that were given away by Obama and the Democrats. Crimea and all occupied region returns. I mean, imagine. They want security guarantees, NATO membership. Imagine them knowing NATO. But asking that is almost insulting, because that's the reason why Russia invaded Ukraine. Sanction. Maintain all territory restored and reparation begins. So you want Russia to pull back, right? And then you want them to actually... It's not possible. It's not possible. They're not going to do that. They're not going to pull back in such a fashion. Okay. What else do you want? Well, I want also Ukraine. Must be present and agree to all terms. Obviously, that's not happening because you're not being invited. Full reparation and war crimes prosecutions. That's what Ukraine wants. So basically, you want to send Putin to jail, and you want to get paid for all of the heartaches that you suffered. Wants Russia isolated to weaken military threat, and it will fight as long as it takes. How can you possibly? It was the single lie by Ukraine wanting to join NATO was a cause for the war. Well, Scott, we shall see. Well, you can't make Ukraine a NATO nation. That's a non-starter. The U.S. really didn't like the ideas of having Cuba full of Russian. So you expect the Russian to be full of, NATO people right at their border? That's not going to happen. Tell me, what are you talking about? Why should they be in jail? You have to make a point. You need to explain your situation. You can't just throw things out there. There's got to be a reason, right? But I don't think that's the case. I think at the end of the day, what you want is you need to understand what these people are doing and I will tell you how this will impact you. You should be very concerned about what you're seeing right now. Not so much because of the fact that these people are going to be talking and they're going to be at Ukraine. You need to understand why they're doing it and how that's going to impact you. And I will tell you why. This is going to impact you because the U.S. is a bit desperate now. The U.S. is becoming desperate to negotiate and to make sure, not for Ukraine, negotiate for itself. Don't forget, countries don't have friends or enemies. They only have interests, right? So what they're going to be doing is they are going to essentially be talking about the fact that they need some sort of, as mentioned in the London newspaper, economic cooperation. That came out 4 hours ago. And I talked about this 3-4 days ago. What's also happening is you need to be concerned about the fact that the U.S. is losing ground. Now, is that a bad thing? Well, you need to do something. And obviously, the U.S. is talking to India. They're not listening. They're talking to Russia. I'm not so sure if they're going to be listening, depending what you're asking for. If you're asking for to get away from Ukraine, that's never going to happen. And they're talking to China, but obviously they're not. It's being postponed. There's something going on at play here, major at play. Why? Because there is a loss of relevance. Not so much that I mean, the way they make it come out is, I want to make America great again. But it's not so much about making America great again, it's to make sure that it doesn't become irrelevant. That's the issue. More key important, Russia is losing ground and has been for a very long time. Yeah, but I don't think it's just the U.S., but Russia. Yeah, no, Russia, obviously, I mean, there's nothing, Cash 75 is correct. No, Scott, Trump is not making us irrelevant. I mean, the U.S. has been dropping slowly but surely over the year, not in the past 6 months. But, and this is why I want you to have this channel, so that you at least understand, the concept, what we're trying to do. How are we going to split the Ukraine resources? Well, that's not going to happen. But the point is that the U.S. has starting to lose a little bit of its standing, unfortunately, and this is what you're seeing going on everywhere. With the administration is using tariffs to get after India, is using tariff trying to get to China, but it's not working because they're already talking to each other. They're not talking to you anymore, and that's a problem. So at the end of the day, Trump is going to meet with Putin. I believe that he's going to try to have some sort of economic cooperation. How can we bring you back in? And I want you to stay away from the Chinese. It's going to be very difficult because they're all together already. I don't know if you know that, but Russia, I talked about that in my China decoupling, but the China has been doing some war games recently. In fact, China and Russia in August of this year, China and Russia launched Joint Sea 2025, a joint naval exercise, right? The drills include submarine rescue, anti-submarine warfare, air defense, and missile operation, demonstrating deeper military cooperation amid global tensions. So they have been talking, they have been discussing, and once you have a joint military operations, what are you doing? What are we doing with this survey? Should the U.S. provide weapons? Yes. Well, most of you want the war to go on then. Okay. But the MAGA people do not want that. They do not want this thing to go on and on. These countries need USA consumer. Trade is a legitimate bargaining chip. Yes, Druffy, you're right. Yes, Druffy is correct. These countries, they do want the U.S. consumer. And you know why? Because the U.S. consumer is the most powerful weapon that the U.S. administration has currently. The U.S. consumer is very powerful. Okay? Why is the U.S. consumer powerful? I'll tell you what. Sheer market size, population, and spending power. The U.S. has over 330 million people with one of the highest GDP per capita levels in the world. Consumption share of GDP, consumer spending makes up rightly 70% of the U.S. GDP. Okay? Far higher than most other major economies. This means domestic demand alone can drive economic growth. Global demand driver. The U.S. is the world's largest importer, buying goods and services from nearly every country. No. I'm asking ChatGPT. I'm literally asking ChatGPT. Yes. I mean, there's so much information. Scream 3210. Tariff diminishes the power of the U.S. consumer. Well, it will. He asked his Russian handler. Wow, Scott, that's very disappointing here. Chris, yes, no, Chris Lincoln, a tariff diminish the power of the U.S. consumer. It will, well, depends if the cost gets passed on to the consumer. But as you see, um, the last number that came out, the inflation number weren't too bad actually. So um, that's what everybody's waiting for. Inflation, bring, charge the consumer, but so far it's not. So the dollar dominance, because as much global trade is settled in U.S. dollar, American consumer demand often dictates global production priority. So right now, the U.S. consumer, that means you, or most of you, basically are driving this entire economic development, and that's huge. How long is that going to last? That's the question, right? How long? And don't forget to join this channel. Today we're talking about Trump and Russia, but at the end of the day, what we're trying to do here, more importantly, we're trying to figure out where is the next black swan. And in this particular case, the black swan that's hiding that you're not seeing is the fact that the U.S. is slowly losing ground. Right? That's a concern. Not there yet, and this is why you're seeing all these things happening, right? These people are not meeting there to talk about the war in Ukraine. They're talking about, they want to negotiate some kind of a deal, some kind of negotiation, some kind of a deal with the U.S. so that the U.S. start to work with Russia again. Remember, Russia and the U.S. worked against the Nazi in World War II, right? So, and then the other thing that we do on this channel is we look at all the elements that are happening in the world. What's going on with the economy? The economy right now is doing great in the U.S., in the world also. Stock market, not so good. The world is doing better than the U.S., believe it or not. Stock market in Germany is higher. Stock market in Italy is higher. Stock market in the U.K. is higher. So, but the market is coming back. How is the dollar doing? That's the strength of the U.S. economy. It's a very strong currency, because it is a reserve currency. Trump is Powell. What is a Powell situation? What is going on with the Fed? What is going on with Israel? Is China decoupling? What's going on with inflation? I want my subscribers, and that's why I want you to join. I'm welcome, obviously, all the very healthy discussion that we're having, but I also want you to learn something from this process. We are global. The dollar is down. Yes, scream 320. There is a lot of issues, and more important, before you're able to talk and negotiate, you need to understand the issue. And the issue that we're having is you have China, India, and Russia on one side. You have the U.S. on the other side. The Russia wants to talk to Trump because he wants to keep Trump away from Europe. Roman says something very interesting. Countries are starting to move away from the dollar, and that's exactly the problem. Because the only thing that all these countries want, India, China, right? They want the dollar. Give me the dollar, because I can't do anything in the world without the dollar. But once I've built everything that I want, once I've created everything that I want to create, once I have everything that I want, then, my friends, what I'm going to do is I'm going to close my doors. And I don't need your dollar, because I could produce everything myself. China right now is building the biggest hydro dam in the world, $168 billion to sustain to his own energy. So once they have that, they don't need you anymore. It's over. And then you're going to have your dollar, right? I have one in my pocket right now. You say, hey, hold on, I got some dollars. Do you want it? I don't have it. I don't want it. I don't need it. In fact, my new customer is not the U.S. customer anymore. It's going to be the Indian customer and the Russian customer. That, my friend, is what they're concerned about. And that is what they're trying to get in the middle. Because what happens if one day, I will tell you right now, in terms of the U.S. Why is the U.S. still negotiating and waiting to talk to China, and they keep postponing and they can't agree? Because 50%, right, of circuit board comes from China. All your iPhones and assembled in China. Computer chips is from China. Lithium battery, 80% global capacity in China. Active pharmaceutical ingredient, 70 to 80% comes from China. Antibiotics, 100% of the antibiotics from the US comes from China. China. Right? I'm joking around it, but it's not funny. This is a real situation that you need to understand. And the reason you need to understand this situation, my friends, is because ultimately you don't have time to replace all these. Maybe 5 to 7 years, and that's it. And after that, you're gone. Don't forget to buy me coffee with some super chats. And if you send me a super chats, I'll talk about your particular issue and bring it up to everyone to discuss. So waiting for super chats means super talk. Rare earth minerals, 70 to 80%. I mean, these numbers, I didn't dream up. These are real numbers. 70 to 80% of U.S. supply of rare earth mineral comes from China. And of course, you use rare earth minerals from EV motors, wind turbine, military radar, missile guidance, all kind of things, right? And right now, you're not making them. 80 to 90% of global output of solar panels come from China. EV batteries, dominant producer. Graphite for battery, 80% for global manufacturing. That's okay. We have almost 200 votes here. Let's see. Should U.S. provide? Yeah, I mean you're kind of a good crowd because you're right in the middle. 57%. 57% of you say that yes, we should do that. We shall see. Now, the next thing is this. So, what about China? What does it need from the U.S.? Well, it does need semiconductor equipment. It does, have some crucial AI development. So it needs NVIDIA, the NVIDIA chips. That's very important for China right now. It needs some quantum computing parts. But most importantly, you know what China wants from the U.S.? It wants you. China wants the U.S. consumer. That's what it wants. And that's what they want. And frankly, at the end of the day, what it's all about is there's a shift. Now, of course, with all things that are happening, and I'm telling you right now about what China wants, basically you, and what the U.S. from China is about everything, frankly. So how does this get resolved? Well, it's messy. Right? It's very messy, and that's why everyone is, I won't say complaining, but it's easy to say, well, the U.S. administration, you're going here, you're going there, you're upsetting this. Your friend was with India, and now it's not your friend anymore. And it's not friend. You got to stop thinking about friend and enemy. It's all about interests. These people have interests, right? And it is in the interest of the United States to remain relevant for obvious reason, because for you, my subscribers, and don't forget to subscribe. Because you want to know about all these facts and figures, and more importantly, what are the elements that you need to be concerned about. And I'm following about 10 of those issues, from Maxwell, Russia, inflation, and all these things. The reason you need to be concerned about is what happens if at some point, right, Russia says, China says, you know what, I have the largest ship in the world because I have 50% of the shipbuilding capacity in the U.S. I've done the whole thing. I am done. I don't need you anymore. So goodbye, we're closed, we're going to do business with each other. And then when you're going to go to your government in the US and you say, but I need antibiotics. Well, it's going to be a lot more expensive now because China is going to charge premium prices. Premium prices they are going to charge you. What are you going to do? You're going to cry, you're going to complain, but you're going to have it. You have to have it. And how do you get something that, what do you do? That's a question. What do you do when you want something and they don't want to give it to you and your people are crying for it? You want war. Right? So, that's what happens. And that's a concern going forward that we might end up in a war. And that's not good. That is not good at all. Why? Well, because you have a war going on, and what's going to happen is it's going to be a lot of damage. But no one is going to want a war. There was a very interesting quote that I saw about the U.S. being friend with the U.S. and enemies of the U.S. I think I want to share that with you. And you have to be careful. Quote about... Let me see. America has no permanent friends, only interests. That was Henry Kissinger. No, there was another one that you doesn't pay to be friend with the U.S. or something to that effect. Anyway, so let's be careful. Let's be careful because this thing is going to go on, and you need to be aware of that. And that's why when they're going to come out of this meeting, we shall see. But I will put Putin is basically saying that Trump is energetic and sincere. So he's being nice to the U.S. administration. Why? What does Putin want? Because he knows, he's not going to get what he wants from Ukraine. Right? What does Putin want? Well, I'll tell you what he wants. He wants to keep the U.S. away from Europe. Putin has hailed Donald Trump's energetic and sincere efforts to end the war in Ukraine. I mean, he's laughing because he knows that's not going to happen. Ahead of high-stakes summits that has drawn criticism by excluding Kiev. I mean, how could you have Zelensky in this meeting? That's never going to work. In his first comment, he has begun arranging Fridays. The president appeared to appeal to Trump's desire to be feted for his peacekeeping efforts. See how the way they twist the words? They make it sound like Trump is out there looking for glory, right? Do you think it's that simple? And he knows that. And if he knows that, then Trump knows that. Come on. Nobody's that gullible. You have to stop thinking in those terms. He's basically appealing to the newspaper, appealing to the people that like Trump, appealing to people that don't like Trump. But at the end of the day, it's what is in his interests. And right now, Russia is a war machine. They're not going to pack up and go. They're never going to pack up and go until they get what they want. And when they get what they want to basically keep what they've got. So at least you know for a fact you're keeping NATO away. And they want to basically have start resuming business. Put me back in the dollar. Otherwise, I'm going with China. And we're going to start a BRIC currency. Is that what you want me to do? Because that's kind of the threat. And if I know the situation in the U.S., you could bet that Putin knows. So the fact is, everything is known to everyone. right? It's like when you go into the yard and you're going to, who's for whom, who's doing what. The point is what moves people one way or the other. You know, what, how do you move the people one way or the other? That's the question. Because you know what they want, you know what you could get, you know what you cannot get. Then, so what do you do? I'll tell you what you do. It's actually very simple. Is you have a discussion, an honest discussion, quite frankly, because they all know the facts. And they say, well, what do you want? Well, I want you to stay away from China. Great. Well, I want you to stay away from Europe. Great. I already done that. I mean, I'm taxing them and we'll do business, but okay, fine. Well, but the U.S. administration also needs to listen to MAGA. And MAGA say no more wars. So what do you think is going to happen? Don't forget then, when the U.S. recently sold a bunch of missiles to Ukraine, the MAGA people did not like that at all. Even though that it was sold, but they say, come on, I know what's happening here. There's no selling. We're getting involved. They're going to have to stop selling the weapons. So it's going to be something like, okay, well, whatever the Ukraine, Russia had, they keep, and we stop. And if Ukraine says, no, I want them to get out, I want money, a reparation, he says, listen, you're a little bit corrupted to begin with, and I'm not selling any more weapon, then people, you're on your own. Because if I'm going to lose, right, I don't want to weaken Russian any further, because the weaker Russia is, the closer to Russia, the closer to India and to China it gets. That's what's happening. Right? Basically, what's happening is Russia, right? Yes, it's being weaker because, it can't be a war economy at 80. I think they're spending 40. I think they're spending, let me ask how much. Let's see. I think it's 20, 30. Basically, officially, Russian military expenditure accounting for approximately 7%. So basically, 19% of all government spending in Russia is spent on a war machine. And they're going to pull this back out? That's not going to happen. So basically, what they want to do is they want to start trading again with the U.S. and making money. And that's and the U.S. has no choice but to stop selling weapons to Ukraine, because that will stop the war. Now, of course, making sure that Russia doesn't invade all of it, but I don't think they want to own Ukraine. They just want to keep NATO away, and we'll find out what the truth is. But the point is, U.S. administration has no choice. They have to stop it that way, unless you stop by keeping the territory. And if Ukraine doesn't agree, then you stop sending weapons, and then that's it. We're done. Right? And you don't weaken Russia any further. Now, of course, if Russia takes advantage of the situation, that's a different topic. And that's a very dangerous topic, because I will tell you, Russia is producing more tanks than the U.S. Russia is producing more weapons than NATO. In fact, that's not me saying it. It's the head of NATO himself. Let me give you the exact quote. But basically, Russia is spending, I think it's about the tariff. I think they're spending, NATO was saying that Russia is spending as more advanced and is spending more than NATO, even though their country is much smaller. So that's something to be worried about. That is something to be very concerned about. And you need to look at that. What about, so if you want me to talk about your topic, send me some super chats. I'll take even $1. I'll take anything. It's just for the principle of the thing, really. Right? So that's what needs to happen here. Okay. So recoup. So you understand what's happening. China, India, and Russia are not replying. Don't beg for money. Not begging for money. I'm thirsty. I want like some coffee. It's not. You don't have to send me anything. I'm just kidding. I don't really need it. That's just a thing. It's just a thing. Okay. The amount of Russia spends on the military does not matter, as it's been proven that most of it went into people's pocket instead of on the military. Well, I mean, they also spending a lot of. They're also getting the Russia thing, the army thing, a lot, right? Because they're fighting quite a bit. And I think that there is also the fact that they're in the process of really getting into a situation where they're not answering to. The reason I know that they're getting together is, well, take a look at it yourself. Analyze the situation. Has India replied to the U.S.? Has China replied to the U.S.? As Russia, right? They're talking, but nothing is being concluded, right? India is being charged 50% tariffs, and no one cares. That's a fact, right? Switzerland came over begging. Taiwan came over. In fact, they didn't want to see them. There's definitely two camps that you need to realize. Why is Trump so enamored to go after these people? What do they want that's so bad? Because they are already together. These countries are already together. And that is a problem. That is a problem because what you have a situation. I mean, let me take a look at what's happening with the. Let's take a look at the survey. Okay, so let's give you another survey. I ask you about Zelensky. I ask you, should Trump listen to MAGA? How about that one? That I think is important. All right? Okay. What else do we have going? Well, there's a lot. So basically, what you should know is this guy, Oleksiy Chernyshov, right? He's a Ukrainian politician who served as deputy prime minister and minister for national unity from December 24th to July 2025. What are we talking about this guy for? Hold on, let me tell you. Before that, he held other senior role like Minister of Community, Territories Development. He was a governor of the Kiev region, so a connected guy. In June 23rd, 2025, Ukraine National Anti-Corruption Bureau and the Specialized Anti-Corruption Prosecutor, which is SAP and NABU, formally charged Chernyshov with abuse of office and accepting bribes with a large-scale land development scheme of this year. So the allegations stem from his tenure as minister, allegedly enabling a developer to acquire prime Kyiv land at an undervalued rate. resulting in loss of over $1 billion. 1 billion, whatever, $25 million. So the anti-corruption court imposed bail of $120 million. Chernyshov remained free on bail without travel restriction or suspension from duties, despite prosecutors' requests to remove him from office. So he's a corrupted guy, and yet he was able to travel. Appeals to suspend his pre-trial measure have been filed. After traveling abroad on quote-unquote official business, Chernyshov returned to Ukraine around June 22nd, following the arrest of his deputies. Okay, so where are you going with this? Hold on. Political insiders suggest his return may have been secured via assurance from the president's office. Basically, he was flying out. He was leaving the country, but Zelensky says, okay, you know what? Come back. I'm going to take care of it. How did he take care of it? It was a trigger for Zelensky, controversial push to erode the independence of Nabu and Sapo. So basically, what he did is he went after and he said, you know what? Let's stop with the Nabu and the Sapo, prompting widespread criticism and political firestorm. It was a huge issue. So basically, he wanted to remove the people that look for corruption because his friend was over there. And the guy came back and said, no, it's a misunderstanding. So the question is, did that weaken President Zelensky, which may have caused or be tied to the fact that Trump wants to meet with him now? He said, now is a good time to meet with Zelensky because he's weak. That's what's happening. I'm telling you, that's exactly how they're thinking. And you'll see. So basically what happened is, that's a fact, what I just told you, right? So did that weaken President Zelensky's political standing both domestically and internationally? Yes. Waning public trust. A recent AP News report reveals that his public approval dropped from 84% in 2022 to about two-thirds, which is 66% in 2025. Analysts view the scandal as Ukraine's most severe political crisis since Zelensky took office. You need to know that. The move to centralize control, perceived as protecting allies, sparked nationwide protests and deep unrest. Before the scandal, Zelensky's Servant of the People party held strong sway. But now, lawmakers are more cautious. His people in Congress are losing it. There's EU skepticism and warning. And what do you think the European did? They say, whoa, 1 second. We are there helping you out, fighting against Trump for you. And what do? You do this thing? So the European Commission president publicly demanded explanations, stressing that Ukraine must uphold anti-corruption standards to maintain EU candidacy. The move threatened crucial financial and political support. Why do you think they picked that time to meet with Putin? Because whatever they offer, Zelensky's position has been weakened. Now is the time to go and say, you know what? What we're going to do, this is exactly what's going to happen, I believe. We're going to give you whatever they have, they're going to keep. Russia, right? And we'll make sure they don't go any further. And by the way, if you keep it up, I'm not giving any more weapons. That's over. It's finished. I'm done. Okay, because I got MAGA behind me that asking me to stop getting involved in wars. So the more I talk to Putin is good, and I want to be, quote unquote, keep Putin away from China and not being friend with the Russian, but at least, and that's what's going to happen. And that's going to be a problem. So, and the reason why I want my subscribers, and don't forget to subscribe, the reason I want you guys to be aware of this is because you need to understand that if the U.S. is not successful in keeping away, and this is well, I mean, basically, yes, he's fulfilling his requirement with MAGA. They told him stop the war, and he's gonna that war is stopping very soon. I don't know if it's stopping because the territories are going to be given to Putin, or the U.S. is pulling out. You know, if the European wants it so bad, let them fight it out. That's basically what what they're basically saying. Let them fight it out. Okay, if that's what you want to do, then do it. Yes, most of you say that Trump should listen more to MAGA, right? The U.S. has a lot of issues, right? And that's what this channel is about. We're going to go through all of them and try to understand it. This is a huge matter of campaign promise that Trump made, and he has fulfilled, and he will continue to fulfill. Yes, of course. Except that people say, what do you mean? You're actually doing what you're supposed to be doing? Now, the question is this. Is he doing it the right way? Or is he doing it in such a way that he's pushing all these people glancing together? By you telling India, I'm going to charge you 50% tariffs, are you helping him out? Or you're pushing India closer to China? Because when you ask China to stop buying oil from Russia, you know very well that's not going to be, right? You know that. Because 30% of their oil come from Russia. They got at a discount. That's not going to happen, right? They are not going to do it. So then why are you asking this question? That is not what they're asking. Trump is not asking that question because of the fact that India is... But no, what you have to understand is that they have been discussing for a while with India. India charges 39% or 30% plus on agricultural tariffs for you to export your wheat to... So it's impossible at 39%. So they have a tariff rate, right? And I think they're charging... Let me give you the exact number because I want my subscribers to know. So basically, how much tariff does India impose on U.S. imports? Overall, average is 17% in 2023, 2024. In comparison, India average tariff on global imports, 5.4%. So when the US say, we're taking advantage of us, they might have a point, 17% versus 5.4. Okay. Basically, they're charging 39% to the US for agricultural goods coming into India and 13.5% on non-agricultural goods. That's a huge amount. And that's what they're saying. Well, this thing is closed. And that's what they were arguing back and forth. They were talking. They wanted to see, we need to negotiate. You need to let us in there. We need to do the goods. And India was, I don't know, because and Modi can't do it because his interest is that if he gives away the agricultural goods, then the people that voted for him, the peasants and the farmers, right, they're going to be pissed and he's going to lose. So he says, no, I can't. Well, then what are you doing for me then? Then you know what? 25%. And now, of course, because of the thing with the Russian and the oil, that's another 25. But the problem is, Modi is not budging. That should be a warning for you to realize that, you know what? 51% say you should listen to MAGA. Right? So that is something. India is also actually, 17%. India has historically maintained high protectional tariffs, especially for agricultural goods, but has offered modest concession for U.S. products. In early 2025, India offered to lower tariff on U.S. agricultural goods like diamond, cranberry, bourbon whiskey to help raise trade tension. A little bonus here and there, but that's not enough. That is not enough. The U.S. needs much more than that. So what happens next is a question. right? And that's a dilemma that they'll. If Trump didn't join, a lot of people would be. Um, that's a lot of problem. That's a lot of damage right there. Okay, so you have to understand the pressure that is happening now to get something done quickly. And of course, the part of the situation is the tariffs as well. But the tariffs might not be the right way to go, because when Biden did his thing with the weaponizing of the dollar in Ukraine and Russia, did you really teach Russia a lesson? No. What ended up happening is Russia is doing things over with China. He's leveling the playing field and reducing the trade deficit. Well, yes. I mean, he's leveling the playing field, that's for sure, especially with India. But reducing the trade deficit, we shall see if that goes with it. And unfortunately, there's a lot of misinformation. And unfortunately, when you go and listen to news and the frog offered to take the snake on his back, so Carl could see him, and when he got to the middle, his snake bite Carl. That's a good story. I like that story from you. Right? So what's in it for you? Well, for you, you should write the story very carefully, because I tell you what's happening. If the U.S. can't get anywhere with Putin, right, and if they're pressured to push Putin away, so you don't get Ukraine fixed, you still have to send weapons, and then you lose Putin to Russia. Don't forget what I said, that Russia and China very recently, as part of my China versus U.S. is decoupling, I will tell you that China very recently did some war games with Russia. In early July, in early August, China and Russia launched a joint C-2025, a joint naval exercise in the Sea of Japan. The drills included, now it's between China and Russia, right? They're playing war games together. The drills included submarine rescue, anti-submarine warfare, air defense, missile operation. I think these people are together already. As far as India, you should know that Modi will visit China in the SCO summit on August 31st to September 1st, making his first trip since 2019. Japan's PM in Tokyo. Key topics include counterterrorism, energy, and regional tensions. So Modi, India, is going to China August 31st to September 1st. Putin plans to visit India at the end of 2025. They're seeing that happening. They're seeing that all these people are getting together, and they're going to be talking, and they're going to be dealing, and they're going to be doing things together. And that's their concern. They're very upset about that. And that's why you're seeing the U.S. administration running around, trying to get something done. So basically, most of you said that Trump should, well, it's very even, Steven, that should not listen to MAGA. It's not a very strong result. So that's amazing what's happening right now. Truly, truly amazing. And you need to concern yourself with it. You need to concern yourself with it. Because at some point, where does it end? This is why this is a high stake meeting. I'm telling you, this is a high stake meeting. Why is this a high stake meeting? Because if Trump and the administration can't get China Russia on board, they already lost China. Okay, China is becoming more and more independent. India is not answering. The only one that you're really talking to that kind of like you maybe is Russia. You should know. You should know that China, right? If you compare the US and China, the global share of manufacturing is 30% China, 17% the US. So the US is not anymore a major industrialized country anymore. The output is twice as much from China. There's 100 million people working in manufacturing, only 12 million in the US. US is really known for its, basically is known for what it does with services. The top automation and robotic, almost the same. Green industrial policy, tech, shipping share. China has 45% of global shipbuilding versus less than 1% for the US. Steel production, 54% China, 4% the US. Rare earth mineral, 80% of the US supply. That's what's happening right now. The supply is growing. Where are the Epstein files? Unreleased. Well, I don't know what you mean by file, right? The filed are not the file. The file are just you're gonna have to talk to Ghislaine Maxwell for that. She's the one that's gonna tell you exactly what's happening. Now, is that going to happen? That's the question. Mr. Roadback would like me to give me your home address so you can write on over. Elect a clown, expect a circus. Wow. Walmart home address. Because the U.S. is Alaska, we technically share a border with Russia, but they don't get the same treatment we give to Mexico. Yeah. But tariffs don't work. Was opening that plant before tariff, but now the products they will make at the factory will be more expensive. Yes. Well, it's going to be more expensive. But for example, GM, for example, is paying more money, and they took on in the chin. Tariffs do work. Well, right now, bluegrass, it is working, right? Meaning that everybody's paying attention. Now, of course, the question is, are you upsetting the children? Are you saying to these people that, it's too much? You're pushing too much, and you're upsetting India, for example, 50%. These people don't understand tariffs and trade policies. They have no idea. It's just talking crap about Trump. Well, the thing is, they need to understand that, yes, tariffs and trade policy are very important right now. And it is very important. It is very important because the U.S. is trying to make it's not just about tariffs, right? It's about something more than that. America voted, according to Greg. Yes, America did vote. Okay. So, yes. So they're meeting right now. Russia is meeting. And, why should you care, right? Why would an average American, Ukraine might feel far away? But from U.S. policymakers, the conflict ties into security, economics, and the global order in ways that directly affect Americans. Here's why Washington treats it as important to the American people. First, it's preventing a precedent for aggression. If Russia can take and keep territory by force, it signals to China that military conquest works. That could trigger more conflicts the U.S. might eventually get pulled into, risking American lives and money in a larger scale. Two, why you should care. Protecting NATO and U.S. allies. Ukraine isn't a NATO member, but several NATO countries borders it. If Russia wins and moves further west, the U.S. could be obligated by treaty to directly defend NATO states. I don't think that's going to happen, but like Poland and the Baltics. Stopping Russia in Ukraine is seen as cheaper and less risky than fighting Russia inside NATO territory. Economic stability and energy prices. The war disrupted global energy, grain, and fertilizer market, helping drive inflation worldwide, including in the U.S. A prolonged or widening war could spike prices again, hitting Americans at the gas pump and grocery store. Maintain U.S. global influence. The U.S. has positioned itself as a leader of the coalition supporting Ukraine. If Washington backs away or loses influence, China or Russia could fill that power gap, reducing U.S. leverage in future crises. Defense industry and job. Military aid to Ukraine cycles money in the U.S. defense sector. So this is not a very tiny issue. Leon says that Trump doesn't understand NATO. No. He understands NATO. The wrong tariff will break those countries, yes. U.S. citizens are paying the tariff. The goods come in America and then the American, yes, of course, that's what's happening. The U.S. is absolutely a democracy and should participate in democratic process, and if you don't understand that, you do. Give it until November. Well, let's be careful, because in terms of financial crisis, we have to be very careful, right? Because what's happening right now is that the stock market is very, very, very high. Right? That's a concern. What is the market worth? The P ratio right now is very high. The P ratio is extremely high right now, and that is something that you need to be concerned about. Does this mean that because the P ratio is at 25. So at 25, you cannot afford any mistake. My portfolio has been nothing but green since November, and we expect to sky even more. Don't left behind, bud. Jose is right. This is what you call FOMO, fear of missing out. The market right now, in fact, let's talk stock market just a little bit, but the market right now is down 186 points because it's falling the first days after hot inflation data. Now, of course, it's a little bit of a pricing, but basically, inflation is the PPI, core PPI is basically 0.9. Ooh. Initial claim for August is 224, but it's still strong. So this is Thursday. This is the initial claim. Unemployment claims is down a little bit, which is good. It was 228, and they have 224. So less people are looking for jobs. The PPI is a bit high, 0.9%. What happened today? Stock fall on the first day after hot inflation data. Stock slipped on Thursday after a new inflation report showed that wholesale number more than expected last month. Now that's a problem for you people, and I'll tell you what. Inflation increased due to tariff, but they didn't increase as much as the tariff caused the GP. Yeah, no, of course. You're totally right on that. But the point is, as stocks tried to mount a rally early, the wholesale prices rose 0.9% on the month, much more than the 0.02% economists polled by Dow Jones were expecting. Without these factors, the figures would have been much closer to estimates. Despite the high inflation number, Fed fund futures were pricing in about 93% odds of a rate cut in September, only slightly lower. The thing is, are you going to get a rate cut in August? You know, what do you think is going to happen in August? Are they going to lower the rates? That's the question. I believe that they will. No rate cuts. Well, my friend, this is going to be interesting. Is there going to be a rate cut? And for that, I have to tell you that we're going to have to wait a little bit. But I believe that the rate cut is coming. They may not want to do it, but you may actually have it. You may get a rate cut. Consider why tomorrow Trump will play Trump like a cheap violin. He knows the orange. Wow, it's shady. Come on, you can't talk like that about your president. Price pretty much stabilized in 25. We expect them to come down. You know, I noticed a lot of people really, and you could hear the newspaper talking. You could hear the rhetoric. Unfortunately, you know, you have to understand the fact. Yeah, Brandon is right. The tariffs were supposed to sink the market, and it didn't. Why not? Well, because it was surprise. What the stock market doesn't like, the stock market doesn't like surprises. That's one thing the stock market does not like. I'll tell you right now. The stock market does not like surprises. They hate it. They hate that. Let me get a better view here. Right? The stock market, they do not like, they don't like surprises. The stock market does not like surprises. And that's what we're having right now. Lots of surprises. Why? Because basically the concern that they have is they're saying, hey, what's going on? What's going on with the situation in Russia? What happened to economic apocalypse? Yeah, exactly. Stock market is conservative minded. We have election that citizens participate. That is totally right, man. Let's get a better shot like that. Let's get a different view for the new people joining. Right? Because at the end of the day, I want my subscribers to make money. I make money. I want you to make money. Okay. And how do we make money right now? This is a question. So the way you're going to make money, in the stock market is what you want to do is you want to ride this wave right now, right? You want to ride the wave, but you also want to make sure that you buy stocks that have a low P/E ratio. Well, I'm talking about in the stock market. I'm talking about your daily life, right? How'd you make money in the stock market? Well, basically right now, in my Patreon channel, right? In fact, I'm going to create a special channel, special group. I guess I now have the ability to create a special member-only channel, basically, right? We're going to be talking about the stocks that I own, that I buy. You want. That's what you want to do. You want to make sure you understand exactly what's going on in this stock market and in the world, right? Because the market is up, which is great, but for how long? For how long the market is going to keep going higher and higher and higher and higher? That's a question. And the reason you want to know is because right now the P ratio is 25. That's very high, a P ratio of 25. Right? A P ratio of 25 is very high, too high actually. But you know what? The market is doing great. The economy is doing great. Inflation is under control. Right? All these things are doing just fine. So, let's keep it going. Well, you keep it going until you can't. And the market does not want to surprise. Like, it doesn't want to surprise with some kind of international incident, with Russia or with China or anything like that. Right now, you probably want to take a look at rare earth mineral stocks. I'll be listing them for you so that you could see what they are. There's a lot of things you could be doing. Lots of things you could be looking at right now, because you don't want to miss out. FOMO, fear of missing out. You don't want this to happen. At the same time, you need to understand what the administration is doing, which is basically they're very concerned that they're losing ground. I've seen gas prices average here. Yeah. Decision can, but decision shouldn't. Most aggressive data are much more reliable than. Wow. That's good, because now I have actual people that actually know what they're talking about and are very understand what the heck is going on in this world that we're living in right now. It's moving fast. So basically what's going on is fairly simple. Trump is meeting with this guy tomorrow. It's not about Ukraine. It is really about the fact that Trump really wants to have a discussion with Putin and make sure that Putin does not get too involved with Russia. That's what he's trying to do right now. That's the thing, right? Let me read this thing for you, which I think is quite interesting. Is MAGA pressuring Trump to end the involvement with Ukraine? Yes. Many within the MAGA movement have voiced clear disapproval when Trump resumed arms shipment to Ukraine. His reversal drew criticism from outspoken allies who sees continued aid as a betrayal of American value. Headline echoes this sentiment. MAGA world irk at Trump U-turn on Ukraine. MAGA loses it after Ukraine's sudden flip on the Ukraine aid. That's what they're concerned about. Policy moves reflecting MAGA pressure. Continuing MAGA aligned rhetoric. Trump suspended military and intelligence assistance after a tense Oval Office meeting with Zelensky. These pauses were widely interpreted as aligning with the pressure from his base to disengage from Ukraine. You need to understand the pressure that these people are under right now in order for them to be able to do it. Right? They need to make sure, because why is MAGA so important? Well, MAGA is important because if you lose MAGA, you lose everything. You lose the power. How do you lose the power? It's very simple. Basically, you lose the power because the people that are voting will not vote for you, right? Because I'm not talking about Trump. I'm talking about the people behind him. And believe it or not, this is a reason why. We have about 12 Republicans that are demanding the release of those files. That's right, my friend. 12 Republicans. They're saying, I want to know what's going on. Release the Epstein file now. Why is this happening? Well, it's happening because because they want to make sure that the MAGA people stay, it's the MAGA situation. MAGA does not have to pressure Trump to end the involvement in Ukraine. He's trying to bring peace as part of his campaign. See, that's what that's what they keep telling you. He wants to bring peace. He he can't, right? It's not possible. Because there is no way that is going to end like that. No, there's no way. Why? Well, because Ukraine basically want something that they can't get. They want Russia to get the heck out. They want to get everything back, even the 2014 Crimea, and they want that's, all these things are not going to happen. It's too much, right? You're not going to get all these things. I'm sorry. You're not going to get all these things. Maybe at some point you could have gotten them, but not now. It's about the bread. Yes, Flash. Brad show up at important protests and get which over the prices. Russia owes no card. No, Blue, that's not true. Russia, the card that Russia has is that they could turn and go to China. And what Trump is trying to do is trying to prevent that from happening. He does not want China. He does not want that. Russia has all the card. Basically, he doesn't want Russia to go to China, and China knows that. And China doesn't want Trump to go to Europe. That's a dynamic. I don't know how this could get resolved. This could be a lot of damage. Right? That's what's happening. It's too much. What information do we need to find out? Well, that's what we'll see, right? At the end of the day, what we're talking about is how does this end game and how does this all hands up? I don't think. For example, how is the U.S. economy is doing? Well, for example, DIA recently lowered the high end of its outlook, hurt by weaker sales volume. So, are we seeing a weakening in the in the economy? But at the same time, I could tell you that the U.S. jobless claim fell last week. The number of people seeking unemployment fell 224 versus 227. So I'm going to tell you, no, everything is fine. There's less people asking for jobs. Let me ask you this question. Is the job situation in the U.S. strong? Let's see. Yeah, I mean, look, people, 78% says yes. So I don't know what people are saying. Oh, the recession and the stock. You have to be careful who you listen to. Gotta be very careful. Oops. Very careful what they're all saying. 71%. 71% are saying, what job situation? There's no problem here. Right. So it's not a problem. What else? The dollar is going up, so that's a good thing. The stock market slipped because of the inflation number, but it's not so bad. So yeah, this is all very good, people. What difference would that make? If he took the files, we should expose him as well. Listen, as far as the files are concerned, I will tell you this: that they released the what do you call? The court in New York basically took a look at the filing and took a look at the what is that called? The grand jury files, and they said we're not going to release the grand jury file because there's nothing to be released because there's nothing there. There's nothing there. Okay, so stop wanting to release that information. There is nothing. There will not be. Taco Mang is on the file. There will not be. No, they first of all, when you say files, you got to stop running around to the files. The files. Which files are you talking about? Are you talking about the grand jury? You can't have it, and they tell you there's nothing in there in those files. Ghislaine Maxwell said that Trump was not involved in anything that she saw. Okay. So don't listen to all these people. I want my subscribers to be informed about the facts. What does she know? Well, Maxwell basically knows a lot. Okay, let's talk about Maxwell a little bit because you guys want to talk about Maxwell. Let me give you the facts that I have. Right. So basically, as far as Maxwell is concerned, what does she know, right? Well, Ghislaine, she's the one that's going to have to tell you, not the files. Maxwell basically may still hold a lot of information. Okay. I mean, maybe that shouldn't be the news. Basically, Ghislaine Maxwell may still hold a significant information that she did not divulge during her trial, either because it was legally admissible or strategically withheld. You have to understand that. So she knows a lot. She's the one that's going to have to talk. Names of high-profile associates or clients. Maxwell never publicly named individuals who participated in it, that were present, appeared in flight logs. Why? Because that wasn't the point. She was not supposed to be part of this. Okay? There is a long-standing speculation that they both secretly recorded guests for blackmail or leverage at a system of video monitoring inside the residence. We never found out. Maintain archives of tapes, CDs, photos. Well, that's what you need to worry about. That is what you want to ask. That's what you need to worry about. Where are all these files? Situation is good in the U.S. 57%. He's gonna make a deal. He has to make a deal. What else do we have? So what Maxwell could reveal where materials were stored, who was recorded and why, whether intelligence agencies or foreign government ever access it. These are all of the things that they need to see. I'm sorry. What else? You should know that there were some international ties and intelligence links. Some investigative journalists and former intelligence officials have suggested Epstein and possibly Maxwell had intelligence connections. Maxwell's father was himself long suspected of having ties to multiple intelligence services. What she should reveal: operations in other countries. Little has been disclosed about what occurred at Epstein's foreign residence or travel. We don't know. She needs to come out and say it. And she says, I'm more than willing to come out and say it, but I need to make sure I don't get prosecuted. Hey, Svan Kundra. Okay, Trump Nobel Peace Prize. Okay, we got it. Trump is on the list. There is no list. Is Trump involved in your opinion? Well, I will tell you what. I don't think he's involved, and I'll tell you why he's not involved. One, in the document having, this is to answer your question, Terry. First of all, she herself named 100 people that Ghislaine Maxwell. She talked to 100 people. When she spoke to the assistant district attorney, she says, he didn't do. He didn't say he wasn't there. He didn't say. I didn't see him do anything bad. That's one thing. Of course, you're going to say, yeah, of course she says that because she wants them to be freed. Second, the reason he's not on that list is the second thing is the document itself. Let me see if I could bring it up. Let me bring it up for you. But basically, the document itself, right, from the grand jury, the people from the grand jury themselves said that he's not in there. There's nothing to talk about. He's not in there as well. He's not in the grand jury discussion. Okay. So, I mean, there's no smoke at all here. The list, but which list? The list of all the people that, well, then you have to ask her. I mean, that's what's happening with the Democrat, Joshua. The Democrats, and I mean, rightfully, they want to be reelected. They need to find something wrong, so they need to go after. They need to find what's going on. Do I have a picture of the? Let me bring up a picture of the document itself, so you know what I'm talking about here. I'll bring it in the background, so you could see what's happening. You could understand what's going on. I think I have it here. Let me share it with my iPhone here. Right here. I think it's this and this and this and this. And I'm going to share this. Oh, I guess I can't share it if my phone is on, because I'm using the phone to. No, I can't share it. But I could tell you that when I look at the document itself, it says that the government invocation of special circumstances fails at the threshold, and its entire premise that the Maxwell grand jury could bring to light meaningful new information is demonstrably fast. The court, after receiving the government motion to unseal, ordered it to provide material to substantiate. Okay? And basically, it looked and it says there's nothing to be seen or heard in those files. There is nothing in the files. So that's something you need to realize. There's absolutely nothing in those files. I mean, when I'm saying files, I'm talking about the grand jury files. I'm not talking about the files. I mean, you've been to the island. Yes. Exactly. All right. Back to our friend Putin. Well, Modi, by the way, India very upset as to what's going on. 56% thinks the job situation is good. Well, it's Steve, it's like half and half, so I wouldn't make too much of it. A lot of people saying it's not, and it's not a statistical sample. The Epstein list does not mean anyone is guilty of anything. If victims are naming him, they means not something. Yes. I mean, look what happened with India. I mean, these people basically, Trump is going after India in a very, very rough way, and that's very difficult. Very difficult for India. I mean, India right now needs to decide what to do, and that's a big issue for them. Because we're losing India, believe it or not. Very slowly, but surely, we're losing India. And that could be a problem. Let me tell you what's going on also with, there's a topic that you need to know with India. You know, why is India such a big issue, right? That falls under the tariffs. You know, what is this 50% going to do to India? A broad lasting 50% US tariffs on Indian good would be a real growth headwind with the biggest hits to export heavy sectors. Why it's likely does to India near term to 12 months, it's going to shave 0.3 to 0.6 percentage point. That is huge. Its key export sector. The US buys 18% of India's merchandise. Textile, gem, jewelry, pharma and phones, less target exempt in some lists, pressure profit jobs in export belts, market and currency effects. Current account weaker export to the US would widen the CAD unless offset by softer oil or diversion to other markets. Government is already planning exporter support. What the US is doing, right? What the US is doing to India is rough right now. In the medium term, 12 to 36 months, trade diversion, New Delhi is pivoting to 50 alternative markets. The Indians are basically looking for someone to do it, to blunt the blow. But replacing U.S. demand at scale is difficult and slow. Of course, you can't replace the U.S. like that. Supply chain rethink. The tariff shock undercuts China plus one wins. India made some multinational pause or reroute footprints at policy risks arises. Policy responses. Expect target relief for exporters. Why the impact is sizable. The U.S. is India's number one export market. A 50% blanket tariff materially raises land prices on a big slice of India outward-facing economy. The question is, what is India going to do? What is India going to do? That's the question, right? Sector by sector impact. And don't forget to join this channel, everyone. I want you to join this channel because it's very key for you to understand what's happening in the world that we're living in. And what is this world that we're living in right now? I will tell you. The U.S. is losing ground. The U.S. is losing ground. So what the administration right now is doing, it's meeting with Russia, trying to get Russia together to make sure Russia doesn't get with China. You will notice that the U.S. is not able to get India's attention, is not able to get China's attention. Let's see what happens. This could be a big dud tomorrow because whatever Russia wants, it's not going to get. Right? Right? Whatever it wants, it's not going to get. And what does Russia want? Russia basically wants to keep what it's got. It wants to keep NATO off the ground, and he wants to look victorious. And he wants to do business with the U.S. again. And what does Ukraine want? They want everybody out. But that's never going to happen. And that's why you need to understand what is it that they all want to understand the consequences. And the biggest consequence of all is that the reason why the U.S. is running around and tariffing and meeting and exhorting and pressuring, yeah, you could say, well, it's because the president, that's his attitude. No, it would have happened with anyone. Biden trying to bring back the semiconductors, remember? He tried to do that, but he couldn't do it. I mean, he did it for a while with the CHIPS Act because in 5 to 7 years, the U.S. loses its semiconductors. Charles support Democrats. Yeah, Libun. This is not about Democrats and Republican people. You have to start thinking in terms of facts. Okay? Trump on Putin coming here to divvy up Ukraine. I live down the street from Earth. Hope to see you both fly in. Well, he's not gonna divvy out Ukraine. That's what you read, right? What you should read is the fact that actually what he's going to be doing, he's going to be talking business. He's going to be talking business with Putin. There's an article that just came out. Trump and Putin will discuss economic cooperation, which I've been talking about for the entire week. In fact, last week I was saying that. This is not about Ukraine. It's about the U.S. You have to stop thinking in terms of Democrat, Republican. You're just basically picking up all the sound bites that you hit from the news, right? The Democrats saying, look, the orange man. No. You got to be more informed than that. You have to start thinking that what this is about interests. Okay. Blaming Ukraine for being attacked. Listen. The U.S. did not like Russia to be on its doorsteps. Why do you think Russia likes to have NATO on its doorsteps? Okay? Now, of course, they could have discussed it instead of invading and killing a bunch of people. But did you know, by the way, that Ukraine and Russia are exchanging prisoners like never before, 10,000? So they understand each other very well. I don't know if you know that. That has never happened. Even in World War II. In Vietnam, they waited years before exchanging prisoners. Right now, they're exchanging prisoners very fast between Russia and the UK and Ukraine. We should never have had Ukraine-NATO talk. Well, unfortunately, yes. Unfortunately, what I notice when I see you going back and forth, the amount of disinformation is a lot of disinformation, unfortunately, and everything is being brought down to a very emotional level. And what you need to start thinking in terms of how these guys think, they think in terms of interests. And you need to realize that at the end of the day, it's the interest. Well, yes, Rando said Ukraine was attacked. It shouldn't have been. The problem is that all countries are pulling to know each other's side. Yes, of course. Alberto is right. Everybody is looking into its own interests. That's what they want. They're looking for their interests. What is the interest in the U.S.? The interest of the U.S. is to keep away China from Russia. They should give the USA money. What are you talking about? How to become a millionaire? Run for president instead. All proceeds you can keep and lose. The freedom effect. What does that even mean? He was a millionaire before he became president. Well, there's emotion and there's also misinformation. And I mean, where do you get your news, right? Where do you get information? Where do you get your information? You get your information from the news. And when you get the news is bent. So they tell you what you want to hear. If you don't like Trump, they'll tell you bad things about Trump. If you like Trump, they tell you good things about Trump. But meanwhile, you don't know anything. Or not really, right? Because you're saying, oh, Trump is meeting with these guys in Alaska. But they're meeting this guy in Alaska not to talk about Ukraine. They're going to be talking about you staying away from China, because that's what's happening. You need to inform yourself. You need to understand. And this is what this channel is about. So don't forget to subscribe. It's extremely important to understand what's happening. Elect a conservative to fix this country. Dennis Martengo, we don't get the news from this guy. Well, you will need all your comments if you donate dollars. You don't have to give me anything. Otherwise, you will not read every single thing you type. I will read every single thing you type. Is a story of Genesis misinformation? Rest my case. Threshold moment. Any of us not to take the vaccine, and President Trump said it was a matter of personal choice, but President Biden engaged in all of those that refuse. The Democrat asked us where we get our information when we didn't get vaccinated. Wow, we're talking about COVID now? I don't know about COVID. The threshold moment. Use ground news. Where is ground news, King? You need to understand what the news are. And you need to look for, I'm guessing he gives Alaska back to Russia. No way. No. I think what he's going to do, he's going to tell I think he's going to basically agree. He's gonna basically tell Putin. He's gonna tell Putin what he wants in terms of doing business with him, that you will never hear. But then they tell Zelensky, okay, listen, we're done here. No more war. This is it. The vaccine FDA approved. Did you get it? Yes, I got it. I was sick. Democrats say they won't know anything that is not an argument. You have to say. Yeah, I know. I know it's a problem. What else do we have going on for you guys? A lot. I don't know where to start. Let me see if there's anything new. I mean, the news, believe it or not, talks about the fact that Zelensky is facing his moment of maximum pressure. And the reason he's having his maximum pressure is because, unfortunately, he trying to have his friend get away with some sort of when I'm talking about his friend, his interested friend, obviously, because we all have interest. And basically, Zelensky has been weakened by recent scandal. The one with Oleksiy Shenevov. Oleksiy Chernivov is a Ukrainian politician who served as deputy prime minister. And yes, the controversy weakened President Zelensky, and that's what I think Trump wants to meet with him. Waning public trust. A recent AP News report reveals Zelensky public approval dropped from about 84% to roughly 2/3, following protests and backlash over his attempt to curtail. Yeah, look at the backlash that this guy got. Right, that's what happened. Yeah, people were really pissed. They were really pissed at him. EU skepticism and warning. European Commission President Ursula von demanded explanations, stressing that Ukraine must uphold anti-corruption standards to maintain EU candidacy. The move threatened crucial financial and political support. Democratic regressions spotlighted. Outlets like The Week and Political Europe have signaled Zelensky action risk portraying Ukraine as backsliding on democracy and narrative. So that's where you say, okay, fine, never mind. I didn't mean it that way. So there was a problem here with this situation that happened. That was a lot of damage. I mean, Zelensky's credibility as a reform-driven wartime leader has taken a serious hit. And I think that's what Trump wants to meet right now. Even though he reversed the curve on anti-corruption bodies, analysts, and public sentiment, let me know. Yeah, I mean, this is what happened here. It's amazing how how did that happen? He doesn't want to talk about the falsified jobs, so he just glazed over the job report. You have to get a vaccine. No, the job report was a doozy, I have to say. I mean, that job report, wow. Let me see if I have something in the job report here. I should give you you should join my my Patreon channel so you could see some of the stocks that I have in there. But basically, let me see if I have something for you here of interest. Because I want my subscribers to be well known, yes. Because at the end of the day, what we're doing, we're looking for black swan in this market. And I hate to say it, but there's a lot. What is a domestic when it comes to working? The vaccine hurt more than it helped. That's true. So what we're going to be doing the next couple of days, looking at a lot of interesting stuff, understanding what's happening, and I want you to be part of it. Oh, here it is. Here's an interesting chart for you. Look at this. Damn it. I mean, imagine, right? Look what they bring into Congress. They're going to bring to Congress. Damn it, wrong one. Look. Imagine they want the Clinton. Right? That is kind of crazy to want the Clinton. Do you think they know? What do you think they're bringing Bill Clinton and Hillary Clinton now? Okay, everyone. I will see you shortly. And tomorrow we're going to do some more interesting discussion about what happened. Bye, everyone.